Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Blueprints. Our goal tonight is to get the boiler room and get the pump room, which means we need to get the pool. I mean, Schoolhouse will give me a lot of rerolls. Which might let us more easily target the rooms we need. Only problem is, school rooms only have one exit. I'll take the coat check for the sledgehammer. We have 2 redraws. Take the library. I think we might have ordered a book last time. Yeah, we did. The second edition. I can't remember. Did I take screenshots of this book last time? Yes. Yes, I did. Right. Gonna have to get my machine to pull those up. Okay, they are just basically redacting Arindia as a thing. Okay. They're not redacting this. They do redact Arindia, and they react Black Banners, Aridnia, cutting to a new kingdom was born. Okay. Redacting Arinda Ares. Redacting the mystical realm of our ancestors. Redacting magic and the poetry of the old tongue. Third era, they're redacting the construction of a vast network of railways that span the length and breadth of the land, linking the northern mountains of Ark Ares to the southern shores of Araja. This development facilitated travel and commerce. They also are blocking out the sorry, my mouse pointer has disappeared. The symbol of Arinda Ares. They also are redacting everything from Bright Future to the end of the page. course, it's hard to tell what's redacted here because this page is in the way. But redacting Orinda Aries again. King Dissolutes was a king who listened to the voices of all of his subjects. Okay, they're redacting all that. Oh, there we go. Removing the king of the people. Okay, redacting the last half of this paragraph. King died of old age. Removing self-proclaimed. Surprising. His father's good name, but little of his virtues. These pages are the same. They've removed, and as those trees continue to grow, so do our hopes for a common future. A future where we are not defined by the colors of the banners we raise, but by that which connects us. A land we all call home. And then they also remove, this land is after all what is... This land after all that has happened. Still Aridnia. I find it interesting that they redacted Arindia from everywhere in the book, but left it on the title. Okay, I've done what I came here to do. Let's see, is there anything else in this room I want to look at? No. Next. I'm out of gems, which is less than ideal. Redraw. Take the parlor. Alright, what do we got? This box is not empty. This box contains gems. All statements that contain the word gems are false. So if this one is true, this one is false, and this one is false. If this one is true, then this one is false, and this one is true. If this one is true, this one is false, this one is true. No! Alas. Take the guest bedroom. Take a key. Her ladyship's chamber. Will we get that room? Probably not, but we'll see. Don't have any gems, take the hallway. Take the chapel for the mountain of money. I'm going to take the gymnasium, despite the fact we're going to lose some steps, just because I want the 2 directions. Want an excuse to take a dead-end room. Perfect. The gymnasium is now off. I think the West Wing Hall, even though I think it has a likelihood of having locked doors. Still don't have any gems. Let's see. We'll take the reading nook. Just for the key, mostly. And the magnifying glass. And this run fails. We have a gym now. But we don't have any more doors. All today. We have not seen the shrine in quite some time. Okay. Let us see. How many coins do we want to give them? We only know what 7 does. Let's give them 10. After you draft a red room, you have at least 5 different ranks. After you draft a red room, if you have at least 5 different ranks containing red rooms, gain 5 gems. That is a terrible... That is a terrible blessing. Can I offer you more money to make that go away? No, I'm not going to take the money back. That seems like a very unwise decision. Wish the library pointed in more directions. Take the den. We also wasted our sledgehammer. Had it serve us no purpose. Alright, nice little dead end here. We'll put the storeroom here. Away. Library. All right, what book we gonna get this time? Go with the Curse of Black Bridge. I don't know what that is. I don't think we've ever had the gallery before. I will take the gallery. Weird. Okay, we don't know. All right, we're gonna have to name the paintings. Rose, apple, hydrant, stop sign. All upside down. Five characters. R W F E E S Z. D. D. Okay. I had to guess. I would say this was titled Thick. Nothing happened there. Hmm. Okay, so it is not named Infinity. Hubris, envy, lust, wrath, gluttony, sloth, avarice. Greed, sloth, gluttony, wrath, lust, envy. Hubris is pride. Don't know. I don't know. We'll come back. Maybe my brain will think of something. Shovel. Dig. Burn up. Very productive use of shovels so far. We've acquired the boiler room. Now we just need to find the pool and the pump room. And also get access to the foundation. Here's a question I don't know if I've checked before. I'll turn this on. And then flick this. Power still works. We don't have any gems. Reroll. Reroll. Don't have any gems. We will take the dark room. Alright, we're going to leave for now. Let's say, didn't I already take security? But no, we just don't have gems. I should not have opened this one first. I'm gonna take the weight room, but I'm not going in there. Oh, you lose your steps whether you go in there or not. Okay. Fine. We have access to the foundation. There could at least be something interesting in here, game. Fine, fine. There's the utility closet. There's usually some items in here. At least one of them. There's a security card. Take the chapel. Take the boudoir. There's Christmas presents in it. I'm not sure I've ever encountered this particular boudoir before. This is an excellent one, although I still don't know the code. Take the corridor just to connect to the antechamber, even though we don't have. The antechamber currently doesn't do anything for us, but I was gonna say. Reroll. Luxury items. I have money. I'll take the ornate compass just so it's something I bought. I don't think it's actually going to do me any good, but I need the nursery. I need the steps. Okay, this is the one I've already taken screenshots of. We'll need to find the master bedroom to check the screenshots. Yeah, I need to go to the foundation. Dirt to dig. Turnip. I could use a turnip. Safe deposit box key. Vault 370. That's a different one. Door is locked. Okay. Door is locked. Dining room is something I need, yes. I'll take the 20 steps. I've never encountered the trophy room, so. Okay. We have 3 readrooms. I think I'll just take the hallway. Take the bedroom. Take the passageway. Up. Well, I know that. Redraw. Take the walk-in closet. Another safe deposit box key. We really need to find the vault. Well, that felt like I only got 3 items. But I'll admit I was not paying adequate attention. Oh, it's the running shoes. Redraw. I don't like it when the archives pops up twice. Redraw again. Okay. Security. We've missed a broken lever and a sleeping mask. Wow, that's not great. Got to switch the change offline mode. Unlocked. Confirm setting. Got security level high. I don't want the archives. Did I not turn the gymnasium off? I should not do this, but I'm going to do it. come down here. Yes, I just lost a lot more than 2 steps to save 2 steps. I know that was unwise. And before we proceed, let's check see what we got here. Take the guest bedroom for the steps. And the 4 keys. I will take that. I want her ladyship's chamber. I don't think I'm going to find it, but if we do, we're going to mark it. I think get a bonus for it or something. I don't know. Okay. See, I have gems. Redraw. I'll take the bunk room for the extra steps. Kitchen. Take the observatory because we always take the observatory when we have the opportunity if we can. Oh, the gymnasium's a dead end anyway. I should have rotated it. Take the garage. Don't have the key for the here. Maybe there's some items. There are not, but there are 3 keys. Alright, we need to keep a lookout. For the broken lever. And the whatchamacallit, the sleeping mask. Use key. Not a great place for the Great Hall, but guess we can just walk straight across it. Okay, I am out of gems. So, oh, I'm out of gems, so I can't take this anyway. Study's a dead end. Take the Maid's Chamber. I don't know if we've ever taken the Maid's Chamber because it seems like a horrible room to take since it reduces, you know, items. See, I was taking notes of the angels at some point, wasn't I? Maybe I have taken this room. Yes, I have. Parlor. I need the vault, if nothing else, because I have 2 safe deposit box keys. The other 2 boxes are true. This box does not contain any gems. This box contains gems. This box cannot be true, because then all the boxes would be true. So this one is false. This one could be true or false. Okay, if this one is true, then this one is true. This one is false. This one is true. Gotta be this one. No! We failed 2 of these in a row. That's... I don't think it's ever happened to me. Okay. Conference room. Or conference room. That'll do. I don't think we have any items currently spread, so... Okay, West Wing Hall. Locked. Yeah. Well, we failed this run too. This is one of the rooms I haven't figured out the letters for. Well, I think this one is. This is one that I thought maybe I knew. Other room here that we have that I don't have. We can check the corridor and the boudoir. We don't have anything for them. And I don't really want to do the puzzle to unlock the back room in the utility closet again. So. Alright, this room. I do not know what this one is supposed to be. I mean, like, that looks like that could be a fossil. But I don't see anything that could turn fossil into. Map. Art. Paint. Brush. Do not know. This room has... like wheat. And heat. So W. We have most of the letters. The problem is the ones we don't have are the important ones. All right, let's see if we can get back to the gallery and see if we can figure something out there. And we return to the gallery. I will still admit to having no idea what any of these mean. Checking my old notes. See if I found something about this that I don't remember. No, nothing there. Okay. NK think. Hmm. I don't know. Nothing. Understood it. If this is true, gems are in here. Take the bedroom closet. And we do not currently have any keys. The pool. We will take the pool. I need keys, so. I shouldn't, but I'm gonna. I'm just gonna be wasting a bunch of keys in here. Running shoes. I'll take that. Is it blinking because it's actually in this next room? Yes, it is. We've acquired the pump room. I can't do anything without the boiler room. Sure, we'll take the solarium. Don't have a shovel, right? We do not. Wrong. Everything on sale's nice. We can go to the kitchen, buy the place out. Switch back to the solarium just to see if there's gems on the flowers now. I didn't expect there to be. Three keys. Get to rank 8 for the dining room. Too many. Take it anyway. Unlock the door. Pantry. Take the laboratory. Set up. For each bedroom after your second, a letter will be delivered to the mailroom. Alright, we can reach rank 8. Will give me more keys. But I'll lose the last of my... No. Dinner is served. All the way. Take the library. Back. Okay, we've got the secret garden key. The Curse of Black Bridge. The legend of Black Bridge is one that's well known to the people of the Grand Realm. Versions of the tale have been passed down from generation to generation. With each new telling, the story has changed, becoming over the years more colorful, more verbose, and, as one might expect, increasingly horrifying. However, with so many renditions and unique personal touches, the task of confining and binding this tale, to text seemed an ambitious and impossible challenge. Over the course of my research, I have heard dozens of variations of the legend, and while the details would often change, I was surprised how much of the story's heart remained the same. Yet the more I listened, the clearer it became that there could never be a definitive version of the tale, capable of capturing all the wonder and myth of Black Bridge. In the end, I chose to write down what I felt most authentic, the story my grandfather told me, as a boy, long ago. Part 1. The Berry Picker Force. Many years ago, Before the peace had become a familiar word, there lived a group of rogues so wayward that the locals deemed it appropriate to call their number the Unholy Hounds. They were feral outlaws composed of society's worst in a time when society was at its worst. And for each crime the fearful travelers credited to the group, a dozen more lay unclaimed, each worse than the last. For the gentry, however, who often value their coffers more than their companions, no crime could measure more wicked than the group's primary enterprise, high road robbery. One such member of this so called band of rogues was a boy of 13 years, Jesper, who had not been lucky in his life, having lost two brothers to war and parents to famine. In the years of hunger that followed, Jesper lived in the gutter behind the churchyard, relying on the nourishment of scurrying bugs and weeds harvested from the cracks in the alleyway to sustain his pitiful existence. It is not surprising that a child aiming to escape such hardships would take an easy road out, an easy and well traveled road paved with temptations leading out of the city and into the gentry lands where loose purse strings entwine with the strands of salvation and glisten equally with the hope of opportunity. It was this road that eventually led Jesper to the end of his youth, a hidden cave at the bottom of the Blackbridge Canyon. It was here that he met his surrogate family and saviors, the notorious gang of godless outlaws known as the Unholy Hounds. Despite the hardened circumstances that had led him to this vocation of banditry, Jesper was surprisingly tender-hearted and was often teased by the group for being too kind for such an ignoble life. For this reason, Jesper was assigned the innocent role of berry picker. It was not just innocence that set berry picking apart from the gang's more wicked undertakings, for it was the only duty performed without the safety of night's concealment. Jesper, no stranger to solitude, did not protest that he alone worked while the others slept soundly, tucked away in the cave at the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. On one such occasion, Jesper decided to get an early start. He left the cave, berry basket in hand, and set out into the woods before the morning sun had even brushed against the tallest treetops. It was colder in the mornings, but the headway dawn afforded meant Jesper could reach the furthermost berry patches without worrying of being chastised for tarrying upon his return. It took over 3 hours on foot to reach his destination, and along the way Jesper had passed by many a familiar bush, all priorly pillaged and so bereft of berries that one would have to dedicate several moments in earnest examination before finding a single one. Jesper was patient, but even patience has its limits. He was confident that even accounting for the time lost to his long stretch of travel, his efforts would be well worth the pains. Surveying the patches in his new grove surprised even Jesper. The red dots suspended among the leaves seemed as numerous as stars in the skies. Upon seeing such a bounteous sight, he clutched his berry basket tightly and nearly toppled over out of joy. Once he had regained his senses, Jesper quickly made a decision. He would not reveal the location of this newfound treasure. Instead, he would earn the respect of his confederates, who, upon seeing his yield, might attribute the success to hard work. Smiling at his plan, Jesper set off to fill his basket and was making steady strides in the task when the sound of thundering hooves interrupted him. A carriage! A carriage is approaching. The thought of it made Jesper freeze. Had he been so enchanted by his discovery that he had neglected to observe his surroundings? How could a roadway be so close? He ducked down and crept toward the impending sound, hiding behind one of the larger bushes nearby. It was only a moment more before the sound source revealed itself. Within 50 paces of where Jesper hid, an elegant carriage with gold trim came soaring around the corner of trees, led by two beautiful white horses, and conveyed by a stern-looking driver seated atop the vehicle, flaunting the most sophisticated regalia Jesper had ever seen. It was not just any carriage. It was a royal carriage. Even without ever having witnessed such a sight before, Jesper was certain. The sight had so transfixed Jesper that he stood awestruck, unable to tear away as the carriage approached. The little concealment the bush provided was soon proven unequal to the driver's lofty perch, and upon spotting the boy, he pulled the reins with such effect that the noble steed slid to a sudden halt with precise control. "You boy, get out from behind that bush," he shouted with the rigidity that betrayed a modest amount of fear. "You startled me half to death, coming round the bend of my own drive, and me seeing such an unfamiliar face at a place where there ought not be any face." Jesper quickly contemplated running. The man was much older, and his dress was suitable for courtly behavior, not dashing dashing through the bramble and mud. "I was picking berries." Jesper raised his half-filled basket up to allow the driver to see the proof of his words. The demeanor of the man suddenly changed. It was a change that Jesper was familiar with. He had many times seen the same stern expression on the most fiendish bandits melt away when he was presented with the berry basket. Any suspicions that the driver might have had instantly evaporated, for even the notion of a member of the unholy hounds picking berries seemed farcical. The softened expression even made allowances for a smile. "Berries, eh? Say, you couldn't have picked a better spot for 'em, could you? I used to pick berries here as a boy." Jesper took his cue to finally step out from behind the bush, proudly brandishing his basket. "I know, and what luck I found them. I have only just begun picking, and look how many I have. It would have taken me fourfold the time to back home to procure this number." The driver bent down for a closer look. "And where is your home, boy? It must be quite far." Jesper replied with a scripted response. "A little south of Tanner Fork, just past the burnt woods." "My God, that is far. You couldn't have come all that way only this morning." It was true. Tanner Fork was in the exact opposite direction Jesper had traveled, and while that response would seem perfectly reasonable in the location closer to Black Bridge Canyon, he could see why it might seem less believable here. "Sir, I've traveled much further for much less profit. I dare say there is no distance yet made by man that would not be worth undertaking for a prize such as these. Surely you have tasted them for yourself." Jesper felt happier with the response as it seemed to amplify the man's smile. "In my youth, often. But perhaps I took it for granted because I never had to travel very far. And even then, my father would always drive us here in our carriage. So I'm ashamed I never had to walk such a stretch to earn an equal reward." It was Jesper's time to smile. "Then let my efforts reward us both today." He raised the basket even higher. "A taste in memory of your youth, sir." The driver chuckled and removed one glove, bending over the seat to reach down to the basket, and at the moment his fingers touched the first berry, the dagger in turn met his throat, cutting through a superficial layer of skin and drawing blood. Jesper caught the man's startled eyes. "And for that taste, I will have your purse, sir, in memory of my youth." The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he had ever been. Whether unable or incapable of speaking, he did not respond to the boy. Perhaps he did not think his jaw could afford to be engaged at this particular time. Jesper let the basket drop, freeing his other hand to probe the man's pocket. "Do not mistake me, sir. I will not kill you if you give me no cause, though I will admit the thought of taking your carriage and leaving you the indignity of walking appeals to me." Unable to find a purse in the man's coat, Jesper pivoted to search the seat under it. "Why have you no purse upon your person?" The driver slowly raised his hand cautiously, pointing toward the carriage door behind him. Jesper lowered the knife's edge in a small degree to allow the man to speak, which he did in turn softly. "There's a lockbox in the carriage." "Well, come down then and grant me the courtesy of sparing your life and binding your hands, a concession I assure you of my tender heart, for it would be much easier to slit your throat." The man started to comply, slowly lowering himself from the driver's seat of the carriage. Once down, Jesper guided him from the carriage to the nearby tree, where he instructed him to get on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Excusing his inexperience, the man indulged Jesper while he figured out how to adequately bind him. The smile and kindness Jesper had seen on the man's face, now nothing more than a distant memory. In their place, cold, dark eyes displaying no emotion. I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you were showing me? Jesper stopped, surprised by the question, but ignored it. I wonder if that's the man speaking. Yeah. I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you were showing me? Jesper stopped, surprised by the question, but ignored it, secured the final bindings, and hastily returned to the carriage. With one hand on the door's handle, he turned back to the man. If there is no lockbox, there will be no clemency. Inside the carriage was surprisingly dusty and unswept, a stark contrast to the elegant and polished golden facade of the exterior. It had apparently been many years since a passenger had enjoyed passage in this vehicle. This all but confirmed what Jesper had suspected. The driver of this carriage was not a liveried servant in the employ of some greater master. Any curiosity that this observation might have further produced was quickly abandoned upon seeing what rested on the carriage's back seat, a large wooden lockbox. Despite its hefty appearance, the box was surprisingly easy to handle. Within a few minutes, Jesper had dislodged it from its hold and carried it out into the sunlight. Inspecting the box carefully, two observations were made. Totemic symbols found carved on all four sides of the box hinted that the box was very old and likely not created by Aridnian hands. It reminded him of artifacts from the old world and was presumed crafted in one of the ancient realms. Secondly, the box was secured by a rusted yet robust padlock that would not open easily without a key. Jesper looked over to see the driver quietly observing him from his indentured position. Do you perhaps have a key you can provide me to open this box? Without emotion, the driver replied, There is no key to that box. Jesper stood up. Easy enough then. He headed over to a nearby rock of sizable dimensions and lifted the stone up, carrying it back to the box. If there was ever a time when the lock had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. With one hit, the stone had completely shattered the rusted lock. He bent back down and opened the lid. Inside was an effigy, a crude figure chiseled from stone. Without too much deliberation, Jesper bent down and picked it up, somewhat surprised how heavy it seemed, given how light the box had felt. Having expected to find something more akin to gold or gems, he looked questioningly to the man, hoping to find an explanation. The driver's smile had once again returned. You are cursed, boy, for deadly is the stone. You have opened that which should never have been opened, and you are cursed. Jesper carried the effigy over to the man and shoved it in front of his face. What is it? That's one. Feeling his disappointment rising to anger now, Jesper tightened his grip on the effigy. One what, you mumbling agenter? And in God's name, why have you no purse upon your person? The man did not seem intimidated. One pace. He paused for effect. 12 more and you will be dead. He only had a second to flinch before the effigy struck him in the head and put an end to his cryptic ramblings. If there was ever a time when the old man had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. Jesper looked down at the sculpted stone figure, now splattered red. Was it cursed? Was he cursed? He had of course heard stories of curses, and had never doubted their validity in the past. But now that he was standing face to face with the possibility of being cursed, his mind pleaded with him to be skeptical. And if he was cursed, what difference would the knowledge make? A dozen more paces would not be enough to find another living soul, to say nothing of the chances of procuring a remedy. If he did not move from where he now stood, He could maybe live another 3 or 4 days. Maybe even given the abundance of nearby berries, a plan that, if we ignore its obvious faults, might provide additional opportunities for help to come along. But what good would that do? To be discovered here, beside a body, stolen goods in hand, bloated from berries and raving about a curse that could very well not be real. No, it would not. It would no, it would most certainly be better to face one's fate now. Take a dozen paces and see if life goes on. But Jesper found his legs unable to make that first step. His mind was unable to convince his limb to waste away 1/12 of his life. In a single motion, feeling the desperation sink in, he hopelessly looked about him for a solution. And if by some stroke of luck the gods had heard his plea, a miracle materialized before him, as if he had found himself suddenly at the end of a fairy tale. 2 white horses and a carriage of gold trim were beside him, the answer to his immediate prayers. He laughed at his fortune and calculated the short number of paces back to the road. 4, perhaps only 3 if he jumped. He made a quick survey to see if there was anything he wished to grab before taking the plunge. He thought about removing the driver's fancy coat, as that appeared to be of some value, but the additional risk of undertaking such a task too great a chance. And so, after a profound breath, he took a second, third, and fourth steps through, though they were quite large. Seated now behind the horses, he reached for the reins and suddenly realized that he was still gripping the effigy. If the curse was real, then it must most certainly be better left here. If, on the other hand, the story was fictitious, there might be some appraisal that could be made of the figure. It was, after all, found within a lockbox, whose typical function often secures objects of value. Having witnessed firsthand the horrors of destitution, Jesper found his mind equally reluctant to allow his hand to let go. If it is cursed, I die. Not today, then tomorrow. And if I die, what care have I? And with that statement, said aloud to the horses seemingly, Jesper took up the reins with confidence. Part 2. Below the Black Bridge. This is a long book. Miller awoke to some light nudging from a familiar foot. Only one person would have cheek to awaken her in such an ill-mannered fashion. Shaking the sleep from her eyes, she glared up at him in the darkness, but did not say a word. He nudged her again, teasingly, then stepped back into the dim. After taking a moment for her eyes to adjust to the darkness of the cave, Miller remembered. She was on third watch today. Quietly collecting her things and wits, Miller turned as she left, waving to her young friend, who was more than likely already asleep. She crept through the cavern's main passage, careful to not wake the sleeping bandits around her. Like a hero in a book, she often used. Quietly, she grabbed a bow from the haphazardly formed pile of weapons, shaking the accompanying quiver in the darkness to assess how many arrows it held. She then walked toward the sun-drenched mouth of the cavern, ready to start her shift. Above her, in one of the few trees found in the canyon, Miller could see that Ravia was already posted. She waved, and Ravia waved back. Calling out to each other was strictly forbidden. Anything louder than a gesture in the canyon was forbidden. When Miller reached the tree, Ravia lowered a braided rope and pointed to the ground behind her. Miller turned, following the finger, and saw a pail of water resting beside a nearby log. She turned back to Ravia, nodded, and secured the pail to the rope. The pail went up first, and in turn, Miller followed. Ravia reached across to grab water. Miller leaned back to give her space. There was not much room for maneuvering in this tree post, a necessary concession for the concealment the outpost demanded. Ravia tilted the pail to her mouth and mouthed dramatically, illustrating how thirsty she had been. Miller laughed silently as water poured out, splashing onto Ravia's face. It was a bit too daring and noisy of a joke, and had the others been around, they would have certainly been scolded for the unwarranted sound. But Miller appreciated the efforts of Rabia took to verbalize the silence of the morning. They had been on third watch together for over a month, and during that speechless time, their friendship had grown into something special. Affection was unsurprisingly scarce among the unholy. She had felt camaraderie before, of course, but intimacy never. From their elevated vantage, the girls could see both the concealed entrance to the cavern as well as clear view of the bridge that spanned across the canyon. Black Bridge was the link between the Gentry lands and the northern mountains, the overpass that connected Oris and Reddington. To the city faring travelers of the realm, the bridge was an unavoidable crossing. In the day, the task was to ensure the travelers passed by without stopping. At night, the task was to ensure that they do. Like most of her band, Miller preferred the night. The biting glare of the sun might be tolerable to farmhands and bricklayers, but to a cavern-housed bandit, it was a source of constant annoyance. In the day, there was no shroud to conceal her expressions, nor to hide her thoughts. She felt exposed. Ravia touched her elbow and pointed up. Miller, striving to suppress a budding smile, suddenly shook her head in response. There were many signs that the unholy hounds used in lieu of words, but the two of them had developed an extended vocabulary. Gestures quietly forged in the shared solitude of their month among the branches. She watched as Ravia shifted, placing her palms flat on the floorboards beneath her. Miller knew that she was trying to say that Miller knew what she was trying to say, but shook her head a second time. It was often more fun to pretend not to understand. Ravia rolled her eyes and turned away, looking back to the canyon. Squinting through the leaves, the two girls held still, watching and listening. It was not long until Miller, too, heard the sounds of approach. Ravia held up two bent fingers, and a few moments later, two men emerged from the bridge's south end. They were dressed in familiar uniform, long gray coats with black facings, white waistcoats, and a black tricorn hat. They belonged to the local patrol, the Blackguard. Although not an everyday occurrence, their presence at Blackbridge wasn't an unusual sight. It typically indicated an important traveler's impending passage across the bridge. Information that the girls would promptly relay to their leaders as soon as the coast was clear. But this report, while exciting, was rarely acted upon. In Miller's 5 years in the Unholy Hounds, she had never once seen a carriage taken in open daylight, when the Blackguard was near. The men had nearly reached the bridge's north end when Miller heard the horses, faintly at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. Ravia's eyes met Miller's. Same concern mirrored in each other's expression. This did not sound like a typical carriage, cautiously approaching the bridge to cross. Instead of the familiar crunch of high road's gravel, they heard the harsh clattering of hoofbeats against stone. Both girls quickly redirected their attention downwards, looking through the foliage. The sounds were not coming from the high road, but from the canyon itself. The horses were coming from below the bridge. In an instant, Miller had knocked an arrow and drew her bow. Go! Ravia was gone before the whisper had even left Miller's mouth. The young scout was already sliding down to the bank below, racing toward the cave. There was no road that ran below the canyon. There was no reason for numerous horses to be approaching their cave. There was only one reasonable conclusion, and both girls had reached it instantly. The base had been compromised. This was a Blackguard attack. The moment the horses came into view, Miller let loose her first arrow. She was surprised to see a carriage. She had expected cavalry. Before she even finished processing that thought, her second arrow was in the air. Without fail, it would be unthinkable for a carriage to traverse such rough terrain. Yet she watched as the wheels jolted over the rocky riverband. A third arrow was now in flight, and there would be no need for a fourth. The driver slumped over just moments before the vehicle dipped into the small ditch, slamming into an embankment. The force of this sudden halt immediately shattered the front two wheels and catapulted the driver from his seat. Utterly confused now, Miller quickly glanced over her shoulder to see if any horses were also approaching from the rear. Down in the canyon, the entire horde of the unholy hounds came spilling forth from the earth as if hell itself had suddenly sprung open. The group seemed even more bewildered than Miller, half asleep and tripping over one another in a desperate attempt to engage an unseen enemy in combat. Miller could see Ravia among their number, the only one looking up at her. Her expression was chilling. There would be no need for a silent gesture to convey what they both now realized. They had made a mistake. The gang's chieftain, Jeffrey Heartslasher, led the others, cautiously approaching the crashed carriage, like a suspicious fox would near a baited trap. There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in the customary silence. A dozen or so paces in front of the wreckage lay the far-flung driver, an arrow protruding from his broken body, and beside him a blood-stained effigy carved from stone. Miller was inconsolable. Jesper had always been her favorite. He had always shadowed her in the night, clinging to the hems of her every move, the way a child tails behind an older sibling. Tender-hearted, she had always called him, though deep down she had known that it wasn't quite true. His appearance of gentleness concealed a raw, resilient durability that emerged in the most perilous of situations. He had been a follower among the nettles of this cave, but he still had his thorns, honed by a grim past and 100 hands of misfortune. They buried him in the darkness, in the back of one of the larger cavern rooms. He was interred with a berry basket and a silk handkerchief that he had treasured. The mysterious effigy that had been found beside him served as a distinguished gravestone, a marker that stood out as somewhat special among the rows of similar swords marking neighboring plots. No one spoke, not even in whispers. There was nothing to say. Miller awoke the next day to a thunderous shaking and a rattling of the earth, a far cry from the playful nudging of the previous day. She strained to adjust her eyes, but the choking sting of stirred-up dust caused her to flinch. Panic was also in the air. The sounds of scurried footsteps and clattering feet filled the space around her. But even in alarm, the silence was louder. What was it that sounded so strange? Miller closed her eyes and used her feet to guide her along the passage. The whispers around her were getting louder, and intense voices could be heard ahead, louder speech than she had ever heard spoken in the canyon. A growing dread as Miller approached the mouth of the cave, her eyes now open wide despite the dust. Shouldn't it be day? Miller felt a hand in the darkness, pulling at her. It was Ravia. The two embraced, and Miller did not need to see her to understand. Ravia placed two bent fingers against Miller's cheek, and with that touch against her face, Miller felt the same sinking feeling from the previous day. Two bent fingers confirmed what Miller had suspected. The girls had forgotten to relay one critical piece of information to the others. An hour or so later, the screams began. Blood-curdling cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Fordrick Lee of the Blackguard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to the collapsed entrance of the cave. Ah, he grinned. Now they speak. Okay. Sadly, I don't think we got any information from that, but that was an interesting story. Where am I? Let's use our special key. Yum. We don't have a shovel, do we? Okay, do we have other rooms available? We do have other rooms available. I'm going to take the veranda, though. Select a new floor plan to add permanently. We will be taking the casino. We will be taking the casino. Door is locked and we're out of keys. Now we'll take the sauna and hope there's a key in here. So that is no. Inventory. One key. We are missing one key. And 5 fruit. I feel like we're pretty much dead. So I'm going to head back to the trading post and see what we can get for our items. Because we never really check. I don't know if we've ever gone back and checked. Now, we're going to trade some stuff. Coin purse. Back to sledgehammer. Keep metal detector. Key card. Compass. Dice. Salt shaker. Gems. Keep the running shoes. Keep that. Well, we have 2 gems now. And some rerolls. So maybe we can find that one key that's still in here somewhere. Oh no, we're sold out of bananas. We have a few steps. I don't think we have enough. Banana. Yeah, we did make it back. Take the freezer. Alright. We have reached the end of this day. We'll have a lot of money tomorrow. a lot of money in the event that we unlock the casino. Yeah, we still have the blessing of the general, which is still useless. We have extra steps today. A new clue. Take the cloister. Alright, the box next to this one contains gems. A box next to this box is true. The box next to this box is false. So this one, if this is true, this one is false. And the gems are in white. If this one is false, that one's false. These both have to be false, so the gems are in white. Not that we know, not that, you know, we actually need gems this run, but I've missed nothing so far. Yeah. I don't want any of those red ones. There's the vault. Worth a lot of money. I'm gonna take it. I need the boiler room. Take this because we need the extra steps. You. Hallway. Hallway. Bedroom. Door is locked. Door is locked. Take the conference room. Not currently have a security key. Door is locked. Take bedroom. That's the security door. Fill your room. Four. 3 squared. 9. Okay. 11 minus 8 is 3 squared. 9. Okay. 20 minus 18 is 2 times 2 is 4 squared, 16. Silver key. Okay. Leads to a room with many doors. Alright, we're going to use that on the probably one of the north room by the foundation. Okay, take the den. We take the locksmith because we have nigh infinite money. So let's get the lockpicking kit. Get the special key. Secret garden key. And just from the amount of money. Well, okay. That's probably enough. I'll take the storeroom. We're running low on steps. How did I screw up? Okay, we have the boiler room. Take the pool. I am extremely low on steps now. The locker room. Pump room. Okay. We're very low on steps, though. Let's see. We can't get back to the boiler room. Well, we can get back to the boiler room, but we can't get back here. No buttons selected. And this room is obviously not currently powered. Take the dark room. Use our silver key. Oh, we can't see anything. Right. Take the one that takes steps. And we're here. Well, we're dead. It's a kitchen, but it's not going to do me any good because as soon as I step in the room, I'm going to run out of steps. It's also going to take all my steps to even do it. Redraw. Sauna. Get bonus steps tomorrow. Alright guys, we made no progress today, but, well, not no progress. We unlocked some new rooms. We encountered a few rooms we haven't encountered yet. We read a book. So, valid. But I'm going to call it here for the night, and I will be back on Thursday with more Final Fantasy 13 2. So until then, I want to thank y'all for joining me. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'll see y'all next time, and have a good night.